Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. It's been a while since I've been on. A wide variety of reasons for that. Part of it is just taking some time off to get focused on the number of things that we have going on that are all positive in our lives. Been involved in a lot of extra things relative to projects and things like that. So haven't really had the bandwidth to do all of it. I'll be back in the show now and getting moving again with some more content. First of all, happy Independence Day weekend, 4th of July. Hope you guys had a great time with your family and recognize exactly what that means and what this country has gone through to earn that right to be independent and free. And, I'm proud of our military men and women that have brought us to this place historically and keep us here today. I'm proud of some of the decisions that are being made now to maintain that independence. Because it certainly is always a threat, especially in today's world. And this is not a political video. I'm just proud of this country, and I'm super thankful for the independence we have. And this weekend was certainly a recognition of it. As you can tell by the sunburn and things like that I've had, I certainly spent enough time outside with the kids and really did enjoy it. But it also has another meaning for me. Independence Day weekend has another meaning for me. And I want to get into that today's video, and hopefully it inspires you to grow in your life. July 3rd, 1988 was a big day for me. I had grown up around motorcycles, mostly motorcycles growing up, four-wheelers, things like that. Automobiles were always a desire as a young man in my family. Our uncles and fathers and all that had hot rods, Firebirds, Dodge Darts, built vehicles. I learned about what a sleeper was at under 10 years old, basically taking a beat up old truck and building up the drivetrain and the engine in it and making the thing an absolute monster so that when somebody pulled up with a brand new vehicle, they thought they were racing some piece of junk. And my uncles could build vehicles, and my cousin could build a vehicle that could annihilate these high-end cars. And they looked like they were getting beat by some ratty old pickup truck. So it was more humor for them, I think, than anything. And obviously it didn't cost them as much as having a new car, but they were skilled at those types of things. And for me as a kid growing up, cars, it was a big deal. And so with that, a lot of not my identity, but a lot of my enjoyment came. And so early on, I'd find a lot of peace in riding on my motorcycle, my dirt bike. I can remember, when we started getting into those, actually first with bicycles and then into motorcycles and stuff like that. I had one cousin that was around most of the time, and him and I were heavily into those things. And our parents would just not see us during the summer, and they wouldn't see us after school until dark. I mean, we just were constantly riding and constantly out doing those types of things because it mattered to us. Those young men in New York State, 16 was when you're going to get your permit. Now, right or wrong, we'd been driving cars much before that. I can recall my father in an old Plymouth Duster. We'd go to church, had no power steering. We'd go to church, and I'd sit on his lap at probably like 6 years old and drive the steering wheel all the way to church about 4 miles up the road. And so that they pushed the line. My cousin, whose father was a state trooper, he gave him field cars, and so we would take these cars that were no longer really roadworthy and drive them around the field and basically destroy them in the field. But it was training ground for us, and it was something we loved. So by the time we got to the point that we could actually drive a car legally on the road, we were pretty well able to do that, and we're really excited to be able to have the freedom of exploring a much greater world with a vehicle. On September 3rd, 1988, I got my permit, and that was a big day for me. Couldn't wait to get my license. And I remember my first car was a Pontiac 6000, I think they called them. They were basically a Chevette, Pontiac's version of a Chevette. It was a four-door, ugly car, as my dad's old car, and they gave it to me. And before we could even get the car on the road, we got the car on the road, and I was doing my permit practice on it, getting used to it, so I could get ready for my license within a couple of weeks, because I was really ready to get going on it. And before I could get to the driver's license, the car caught on fire in the front yard and burned to the ground. So with that, I got a 79 Olds Starfire, and the 79 Oldsmobile Starfire was my very first car that I drove all over the place. So within, I think, a month, probably by August of 1998, I don't recall exactly when I was fully licensed, but I had my license in hand, and I started to drive. Big deal for me. I loved it. I never got in accidents. Drove relatively safe. I got a lot of tickets early on. I sort of treated my license like a credit card. You max it out and pay it down, max it out and pay it down. Well, I did that with points an awful lot. So I spent a lot of driver safety programs and stuff growing up just because I'd push the line on speed, but never running into people or things like that. And we lived in the country, so you kind of get away with it until you didn't. So that was that. But many years later with my addiction, my license was forfeited. And, so I was on road motorcycles. My last bike was a Harley Breakout. I've had cars, a big source of stress relief for me. We had a lot of seasonal roads around where we were. So I would, my cousins and I would I had a 4-wheel drive S10, a beat up 1988 4-wheel drive S10, and we'd go out bombing through these snow drifts up on these seasonal roads in the middle of nowhere, and we get stuck and pull each other out. And it was just, we'd use that time to just kind of clear our head and just have a really good time. So operating a motor vehicle and being on a motorcycle has been a tremendous resource for me in terms of health and well-being for the most part. But ironically enough, it was also my demise when it came to the crossroads of driving and my addiction. And so I had no sense of boundaries or barriers. And my arrogance around my ability to drive, I thought transcended my drinking, and it did not, and ultimately caused me to lose my license on April 10th of 2017. So all those years later, it's such an exciting thing and such a monumental occasion, and something that's for my family a big deal to be able to drive. And as many raced, and I raced a little KDX 80 and a TT races and stuff like that. And it was a big deal. And then to forfeit that all, my addiction was really just troubling, and it's been rough. Well, why am I telling you all this background? Well, because it's Independence Day, and I have some real, I would say irony, but I also say it's blessing. And also probably, I think a lot of times when I see these substantial wins and victories in my life and new stages, a lot of times they are sort of akin to other monumental areas. I really feel like God does that in my life to really drive home the deliverance. Was an impossible thing for me to time it like this, and it has to be him, for him to align things the way they've aligned. And this weekend was no different. So here's the thing. After 8 years, I'm now a licensed driver. 8 years and a lot of miles of broken glass to get there. A lot of extra approvals, a lot of questions and court appearances and things like that. And finally got to the place that I have in my hand, in this wallet, a New York State driver's license, and I'm back on the road again with no restrictions other than my contacts. So with that, I'm tremendously thankful. Now, back in March of this year, I didn't want to have a car payment, and I like older vehicles, and honestly, I'm kind of sick of what's going on in the world, and I figured it'd fit with the show Chris and Retro, so I bought a vehicle. It's not really retro to me, but it's retro by today's standards, a 1999 Cadillac DeVille, and I paid cash for it from a guy up in Rochester, and it had some cool-looking things to it. It had some custom wheels and custom exhaust on it and things like that, so it was a little bit better than Granny Car, and I loved being in it. I feel like it's a teleporter. Well, having this car was difficult because I couldn't register it without my license. On top of it, this was a Montana car. The title was from Montana. So as I'm going to register this car, finally get my license, go to register it, he had signed the title wrong in the wrong spot. So now we had to get a duplicate title. So I'm chomping the bit. I want to get out and be able to drive. And in my back of my head, I would love to be able to do it by my birthday, which was July 3rd. But I didn't see that happening. And sure enough, we were able to get Montana, where it was able to give us a duplicate registered title. And he happened to be on vacation in Montana, even though he lives here in New York. The week that I needed it, he went to the DMV. They printed off the title, and I had it by Friday, and before the 4th of July weekend. Or I had it by the Friday before the 4th of July weekend. I had it on the 3rd. I got it on the 3rd. I was at the gym. My son called me and said I had a FedEx package. I came home, and sure enough, there was the title. I went over to the DMV, registered it. And all those years later, 8 years later, on Independence Day weekend, a monument, I got my independence again. Now, why is that? Driving is not as substantial as a country having their independence. But for me, without a driver's license, everything has been Uber. And even though Uber is it's pretty expensive if you have to have that as your primary source of transportation. But on top of that, Uber is not always instantaneous where we are. Depending on peak and things like that. You can't just get in your car and go take care of something. It's $30 to go do anything, and even if it's a 15-minute round trip, it's still a lot of money to take care of that each and every time. So for me, independence was, in fact, two things. One is I have the freedom now to go dictate my own schedule without having somebody else's schedule drive it. The second thing is independence is that I now have the ability to do the thing that always has been healthy for me and my mental health, and that is to just get out, play some music, and cruise. And the vehicle I have is not something that's a speed demon. It's the best car in the world as far as I'm concerned, and partly because it has no car payment and the insurance is super cheap, which is an interesting little side note. When I went to get my insurance, I found out that they asked me the questions: have you had a ticket in the last 5 years? Have you had any drug or alcohol related offenses in the last 5 years, or any accidents in the last 5 years? And I was able to say nope. And because of that, my insurance was super cheap. Now, if they asked me 8 years, I probably would have said yes, 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 yes. But because it was 5 years, I'm good. So even the insurance wasn't all that monumental. In the end, Independence Day had a lot more meaning to me because all this work came to culmination on Independence Day, which is pretty wild to me. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, I'm really telling you this because independence, whether it's in your personal life when you've been a complete bonehead like myself, whether you've absolutely succumbed to addiction and thought that you had control over it, and it totally took control of your life and destroyed you. If you were me and you had that happen, then you have a long road. And how committed are you to actually get back on your feet? For me, I saw no other option. I had to go forward and go at it because I felt like I was capable of more, and I do believe I've got a purpose. My purpose and calling was not to be everything I was in that season. It was something more. And so for that, I had to go through the grind of 8 years to have a goal like a license and something like that to shoot for. There were times when I didn't think I was ever going to get it. Candidly, there was many moments I didn't think I was going to get it and was told I probably wouldn't by authorities. So you just take the move and the available information you have today and you move forward. And it ultimately turned into a driver's license that at some point in time was impossible, and it became actual. So this really brought home to me is that when I fell in my life, I had to rise. And I think that one of the things that's challenging when we get through these down seasons in life, it's really difficult to have stamina to live through the grind and the fight that's as a must to get back. It's not an immediate thing. Great falls require sustained effort to get yourself back on your feet. In fact, many of the things that are most worthwhile in life take extraordinary effort to get there. When you get there, it's everything you would hope it would be. Anything that's really not worth fighting for probably isn't really all that much of a reward. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and burn your life to the ground just so you can have this great reward on the other side. What I am telling you is that if you do have those situations happen and you continue to grind and move forward, you will reap the benefits of that by sticking to your plan and only making progress today based on the capacity you have today. There were many days when my license was not a possibility for me. Very similar to the United States and our independence. There were many days when the independence wasn't likely, many days. But through those daily efforts and some big wins and some opportunities and some lives lost and some effort that was not certain, but still made, independence was gained. And the same thing in my life. There was many days when things were lost, things were not working. I felt like we were going backwards. And yet over time, it all came through because every day I tried to make progress. Now, in our country, we fought wars to be independent. In my life, I fought emotional wars to get my independence back. But what I found to be the most important thing, and I believe that probably many that tried to get us to be an independent country, and I know for sure what's important to me, and what I would impress upon you is that through all this stuff, my emotions were secondary to the goal. There are days when I just felt defeated and I didn't think it was going to work out and probably had a lot of data points to corroborate my thinking. But in the end, that didn't matter. What mattered is the goal. And so those days, those feelings came and went. Those feelings came and went again. And those feelings came and went again. And over 8 years, there were so many things that I felt over that time. Always needing this one piece of my life to make life a lot easier. And when I've gotten here, it absolutely has made my life a lot easier and a lot more capable of doing the things that I believe, designed to do through my fall. Guys, I hope this is encouraging to you today. If you're going through a dark season, or if maybe you're just starting, I mean, this Independence Day weekend, unfortunately, around here, there's an awful lot of people that start their DWI journey. They start their loss of license journey. They start their criminal convictions. And in fact, around here, there's been a lot of domestic violence. I don't know if you guys are running into it where you are, but we've run into a lot of domestic violence, a lot of other things going on, drug-related charges, all that. Fights, I do some security work on the weekends. People are fighting just for stupid stuff. It's... if you're starting down this road and you really just can't see out the other side, there's no promise of how long it's going to take. What there is promise of is today you can make progress, and your only obligation is to make progress today. Because if you want that loftier goal, you're going to have to do something today to get there. Just sitting there dreaming about it is not going to see it through. You're going to have to fight certain fights. You're going to have to just rest and know that it's just in accepting the situation as it is some days. But every move that you're assigned to make, everything that you own, you must take. You must take those moves and move forward. Thank you guys for tuning back in. Please regain your focus on the Chris and Retro Show. We've got things kind of sorted out. There's been a lot going on that was good and positive, and just had to kind of pull the pieces together from what you have heard on the show. As 2024 was one of the most challenging years of my life in our home, with some situations that we were dealing with, and now in 2025 we're in that rebuilding stage where we start to deal with what we've got to deal with and move forward. And then in 2026, we have high aspirations for, how this is all going to look on the other side. But today, what we know, just like I've just described in this video, is there's progress that needs to be today made for us to ever accomplish what we want to do eventually, even though there's no timeline promised. But guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for your patience in my absence. Please like, subscribe, and share this with other people. I want people to really understand the nature of what I'm trying to accomplish here on the show. I want you to understand that your high-risk living, no matter what you view about risk, your high-risk living, total collapse is a lot closer than you think it is. There's no insulator that's going to keep you out of it. There's a way and a lane that's always going to make you fall if you're living that way. And the other side of it is when you do fall, hope is a lot closer than you think it is too. Sometimes your nevers, like I'm never getting a license again, is actually just a lie. It's trying to stop you. It's a spiritual component trying to stop you from making progress today. Make progress today. Go forward. The lofty goals you have and the things you aspire to do are very much going to come if you make progress today, not if you just sit there with your hands crossed feeling bad about yourself. Your goal is more important than your feelings. Thanks again. Between now and the next time we talk, I'm going to do everything I can to stay out of trouble, and I hope you do too.